I am fantastic. Well, good morning, Cedarville. I am so thankful and welcome back to campus. So thankful to be here and look forward to the next 2 days of getting to spend some time. Never see myself up there. I look forward to spending 2 days with you as we focus on being on mission. Listen, you are one of the most strategic groups in all of North America, and I really mean that, about being on mission. Many of you are going to graduate from here and go to the othermost parts of the earth. Regardless of what your degree is, you're to be on mission. God can use you exactly where you are. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 9, but if it's okay, before we get there, as you begin to turn, I'd like to just introduce my family to you. I wasn't able to bring them with me, but it helps you understand my context and get to know me a little bit since we're going to spend 2 days together. I'll just real quickly show you their picture. There they are. I have six kids and several grandchildren. My wife's for 33 years, Lynette, is right there to my left. And then our two oldest daughters are in the middle. They're married. That's their husbands, but you don't need to know them. And then on the top right is our oldest son. He's a senior in college out in California Baptist. And then the far left, we have our three biological, and then God bless us with a whole second phase of children, if you will, where we began to adopt. And the very first child we adopted was Libby. She's in the far right. She's from China. They found Libby on the doorstep of a police station just after she was born. And we got her when she was 1. She's now 17. And she's just an angel on this earth. She's just incredible. And then she's a junior in high school. And then Micah Lynn was the second one we adopted. She's over to the left in the middle. She's from Ethiopia. And we adopted her when she was 3. And she's now 14. She's a freshman in high school, and she's something else. She normally has her hand on her hip because that's where she likes it. She's extremely bossy and or tries to be. You guys are too young to ever watch Sanford and Son show. But if you had, we adopted Aunt Esther. I mean, she walks into our room and just says, you got issues. And she did that to our neighbors when we moved to Atlanta. She said, went in their house and said, you people have issues. And they're like, do what? And she said, your house is a mess. You have issues. And we're like, Michael Lynn, we're trying to make friends and you're not helping, all right? And so she's quite the comedian. On the far left, you see JM, John Michael, but he goes by JM. He's from the Philippines. We adopted JM when he was 12, and he's now 19. They found JM when he was 5, wandering the streets, trying to pick up plastic bottles, sleep in the back of a pickup truck. Went to the orphanage and was there for about 7 years until at 12 we adopted him. And so interesting story real quick when I'm trying to take them off so I get distracted. I'll leave him back up there. Interesting story about JM, though. We went to pick him up in Manila. I said, be very careful with him when you take him back to the hotel room because he's not used to some of the same luxuries you're used to. And I said, luxuries? What type of luxuries are you talking about? And they said, well, he's not used to hot water. He said, we have hot water in the Philippines, but not in the orphanage, and we basically taken sink baths his entire time here, and so he's not used to hot water, so just make sure, be careful. So sure enough, we go back to the hotel room. Very first night as a family, you can imagine your very first night in a hotel, having been in an orphanage for 7 years. I'm letting him bounce on the beds, do those things that you typically do, and when you've not been in a hotel. And so I say, JM, it's time for a bath. Hey, come here, I want to show you something. So we go into the bathroom. I turn the water on lukewarm, and I said, hey, buddy, let me have your hand. I took his hand, and I put it underneath the water, lukewarm, and then I just gradually turned the water warmer and warmer and warmer until he began to feel hot water for the very first time. He said, that is wonderful. I was like, it is wonderful. You're going to love it. Now, I'm going to go in there. You take off your clothes and hop in the shower. He said, shower? What's a shower? Oh, I wasn't thinking. He'd been in the orphanage there for 7 years. They had taught him English, but some things did not translate because, they didn't have a shower. So I had to explain to him what a shower was. You ever explained a shower to someone who's never seen one? No, it's like water from heaven. You're going to love it. And so, it's just those things you just don't think about when you adopt. It's like the first time I took him out to eat. The very first time went out to eat, it was so many options. He had no idea what to order. And I didn't really know exactly what to do. So I just ordered for him. I said, hey, look, just bring him some chicken fingers. He's like, no, I not eat chicken fingers. And I said, no, son, they're not chicken fingers. That's just what they call them. He said, well, why did they call them that? And I was like, I don't know. Just dip them in barbecue sauce. It'll be fine, all right? You can only imagine the first time we had buffalo wings, all right? I mean, it's always explaining something, you know? It's funny, when people see us, we have 6 kids from 4 different countries that are like, well, bless your heart, you know? That's how they say it in the South. Bless your heart. And I know what they mean. They mean better you than me. That's what they mean, all right? But I say, no, there's no need to bless my heart. I'm just very competitive. We have 6 kids, 4 different countries. When we watch the Olympics, we win, all right? We do. But interesting thing about JM, when he came out of that shower about 45 minutes later, it seemed like, all shriveled up in his matchy pajamas, he's like, that was wonderful. And you know, even to today, he was just home, as many of you were this past month. He still, when he takes a shower, sings as loud as he possibly can, because he remembers what it's like not to have hot water. And you know, the fact is, we're basically pretty spoiled. We really are. I mean, think here, my word, you're sitting on padded pews in an environmentally controlled building. I mean, we're just spoiled. We take so many things for granted, and churches are one of those things. As Dr. White mentioned, we're about planting churches, and there's a desperate need for more churches, and people often don't think that's the case, but it really is. Interesting thing, the majority of evangelical churches are in the South. I'd like to show you, there is one church in Mississippi for over 1,394 people, evangelical. All right, missiologists say that you need one for every at least 2,000 people. So there's a lot of churches in Mississippi. It's the most churched state in all of North America. You say, well, what about Ohio? I figured you'd ask. There's one for every 15,000. There's still a tremendous need for churches in Ohio. And then you go to places like New York, there's one for every 51,000. Or you go to Canada, and there's one for every, New Jersey, 58,000. And then Canada, one for every 94,000. So you can drive for 3 hours in Canada and not drive by another evangelical church. I mean, it's just incredible, the need. The challenge we have, quite honestly, in North America is the majority of evangelical churches are in the South. They're in the SEC and the ACC. It's the other conferences that are going to hell, and we have got to reach them, all right? No, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You live in places that have desperate need of the gospel. We take it so for granted, and we must be very intentional about where we go. When you graduate from whatever degree you may have, you must be on mission. God's called you to be on mission and be very strategic about that. All right, Matthew chapter 9, if it's all right, I want to look at just real quickly, and let's read through it, and then we'll come back and walk through it in verse 35. It says, and Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Let's stop there and talk about this for a second. Jesus went into the villages. This is a lot like if you read the other Gospels. He does this continually. He goes into the villages. It says, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. He went among the people. And you'll notice what he says, when he saw the crowds. I'm sure that day was not like, just about like any other day. The crowds were probably pretty similar. Maybe a few more that may have needs that need to be met. But for the most part, the crowds were similar than they typically are. But Jesus, when it says he saw them, he saw beyond the facade on the outside and saw the desperate need on the inside. He saw the crowd. You know this because the disciples often, what did they do? They would try to protect Jesus, and they say, well, look, you want us to send them off? He did that many times throughout the Gospels. Hey, we'll get rid of these people. But Jesus, when he saw their need. We must get to the point. If you're going to be on mission the rest of your life, you've got to get to where you see as Jesus sees. All right? We've got to see as Jesus sees, feel as Jesus feels, and do as Jesus did. And the first thing is to see as he sees. That's not as easy as it may often sound. When you look at people, you come back the first day of class and on, you see people as in a bulk, and you see the facade on the outside, but so often what's happened on the inside, many of you come back and you just left struggles at home and challenges at home, maybe financial, or your parents are going through a difficulty, or a brother or a sister, a challenge. And when we see people, we've got to stop looking at people in bulk and looking very specifically at who they are and what they have need of. I was just on a plane the other day flying to Los Angeles, sat beside a guy, and he was an entrepreneur, graduated from USC with a master's in business. Well put together guy, owns 3 businesses. And I thought, my word, this is intimidating. I was going to try to obviously share with him. We're having 4 hours of captivated, a guy who's stuck with me for 4 hours, and I thought I'd have the opportunity to share. It was amazing. I didn't have to ask. He began to share how bad his life was. And as he took off, he did a little symbol that often Catholics will do. And I said, hey, what is that? What's that all about? And he goes, well, I'm a pretty confident guy, but it never hurts to throw in a little luck from the big guy. And then I began to ask him, what did that mean? And he began to tell me how he went through a divorce and all this. Before we even hit 30,000 feet, he told me everything about him. Now, the first glance, I would have thought, my word, that guy is incredibly successful, got it together, 3 businesses. I mean, he's got everything, and he just had a brand new pool put in his backyard. He went through all the things he had, but what he ultimately had was nothing. He told me his life was crumbling before his eyes. I'm simply saying this. We've got to learn to see as Jesus sees. I meet with a guy named Dahadi Lewis, who's the vice president of Sin Network, our church planning arm, every month. We don't talk about NAM. We don't talk about Sin Network. You know what we talk about? Helping me parent an African-American teenager. He's African-American, has 5 kids. And says, my problem is I can't see as she sees. She notices when she's the only one in the room. She notices how people and what people say and how they say it. And I'm not as sensitive because I don't see through her eyes. Now, I think I'm very sympathetic, but I need you to teach me how to see like the Father that she needs me to see. The same thing is true when it comes to meeting needs. And we often step over and around and move around people because we just simply don't stop and see the needs that are there. See as Jesus sees. I want you to notice something though else. It says that he felt compassion. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them. Now, that word actually means he felt it in the gut. It meant he not only moved, but he was moved to action. He did something about it. There's a big difference. Often you're moved and in the gut about some certain things, and you think, oh man, that's a sensitive thing. I feel bad about that, or I should do something. I should write them a note. I should send a text, or I should encourage. But you never actually do anything about it. This refers to action. He had compassion on them. The definition of compassion means to so identify with the situation of others that one is prepared to act for their good. What I'm saying, it's more than a feeling. It's feeling with a sense of action. We need to see as Jesus sees, and we need to feel as Jesus feels. To have our gut moved, but gut moved to the point that we're actually going to do something about it. And then notice what he says. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. They were helpless sheep. Read one book recently about a shepherd's view of Psalm 23, and it talked about sheep being helpless. And often when Jesus said that, he was picturing sheep on their back. And when they're on their back, they cannot get on their feet on their own. They have to have the help of a shepherd. He saw them as completely helpless and unable to help themselves. Much like the gentleman from USC that sat by on the plane, he knew all that was wrong with his life, but had no idea. As a matter of fact, he even said, hey, nobody's perfect, not even Jesus. And that was my whole segue into, let me share a few things with you. Sheep without a shepherd. When Jesus saw the crowds, he was moved to the gut to do action because he saw that they were in a situation where they could not help themselves. What I want you to see this is you're going to leave this place. Man, how blessed you are that your parents, whoever has helped you be responsible to get to this point, to get accepted to come here and have the opportunity to sit in these seats for a certain amount of time, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on how many years it may take you, all right? Look, the only reason they invite me to come to a college campus is to prove to you that a 2.3 GPA can get a job, all right? That's the only reason they have me here. So, I hear you. All right, we're stick together, all right. But you are very blessed to be at this place at this time. But you're going to leave here. And you go into the world and you need to see them for what they really are. They often don't even know what their biggest problem really is, and don't know how to get out of that problem. They're helpless. And what I want you to see is lost people act like lost people. And what this passage is about is not necessarily lost people. I want you to see the very next part of that passage. It says, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Go back, get the scene. Jesus in the crowd with the disciples, using a life moment opportunity to teach them. He saw the crowd for who they really were, moved into his gut to do action, tells the disciples, look, the problem is not the harvest. The harvest is plentiful. There are more people in this crowd that want to hear about the gospel than there are people who will actually share the gospel. What I believe he's saying here, Matthew's making it very clear that, look, it's not a lost problem, it's a leader problem. We don't have the leaders, we don't have enough people, laborers, to go into the harvest and to share the gospel. I love this because when Jesus said the harvest is plentiful, he's not saying it like a sports tip. Like, hey, there's a real good chance the harvest is plentiful. Or, from everything I understand, I really believe that those people will be more interested to hear than you are interested to share. No. If you go back and really read this, he's saying with absolute certainty that the harvest is plentiful. It's not like he's up there wringing his hands like, you think they'll listen? Oh, I hope it's effective. Or you think the gospel could really make a difference? No, he's saying it absolutely will. The harvest is plentiful. It's there for the taking. The problem is I don't have enough laborers to go out there and harvest it. I'm a Kentucky fan. I want to go ahead and confess that right up front. All right? I know it's not a good thing. You guys, you used to great sports teams around here. I'm not as a Kentucky fan. But I have learned a way, and I seriously do this. It takes all the stress out of it for me to watch Kentucky basketball games or football. I tape the games. And then many of you perhaps tape and say, hey, don't tell me the score. I want to watch it later. That's not how I do it. I tape it. I find out the score. And if we won, then I watch it. And he is a little psycho, all right? No. Seriously, it works. I'm telling you, relieve a lot of stress out of your life if you'll do this. I've not seen us lose a game in a long, long time. So if we lose, I delete it. I save them. I can go back 4 and 5 years and watch games we've won. I still have them saved on my TV. Now here, my point was like, I'm going to take, for instance, a tournament game. We played, I know some of you guys are from Michigan. We played Michigan a couple years ago, and we were really good. Yeah, woo, we took you down. I got it on tape. I'll let you watch it. But Michigan, very good team at the time, and it was halftime. They were up 12 points at halftime. 12 points. The commentators were saying, man, Kentucky, this is the most dominant team they've had in so many years, and they're down 12. It looks like they're going to their demise. They're going to lose, and all of this nervousness. Was I nervous? No. 12 down, not a problem. I go to the refrigerator, pull out water, get me a Debbie cake, whatever I wanted to do. Go back, start the second half, not a problem. We get down to 5 minutes to go in the game. We're still down by 8, and they're like, Kentucky's going down. Whoo, am I scared? No. It gets down to a few seconds to go in the game, and we're down 2. Am I scared? No. Why? Because I know how it ends. Even when they throw the ball to Harrison, I've seen it 32 times at least. They throw the ball to Harrison, he goes up, and he sinks it every time. I love that. Because I knew with certainty it was going in, all right? My point is simply this. When he says the harvest is plentiful, but it's the workers is the problem. If we have more saved people reaching lost people, there'd be less lost people and more saved people to reach more lost people. It's not that hard. I just want to beg you, this next 2 days, if it's okay, I just want to be intensely practical these next 2 days and to walk you through some very simple next steps of what I want to encourage every person in this room to do, to make your life be on mission. And it's worth it. If you're going to be a school teacher, you're going to be a doctor, an attorney, or a business person. God has called you to be on mission. I'm grateful for the missionaries that are here, and you have the opportunity to share and connect with them. Many of them are full-time. And God calls many to do exactly that, be full-time. But God calls every one of us to be on mission and to make the very most of the time He's given us. And He's told us, look, there are people in your sphere of influence that only you perhaps could reach. I'm thankful for a guy named Bill I've never met. Bill worked for the phone company back when there was a phone company that actually would come to your house and install phones. He went to this house, installed a phone, and as he did, began to share with the people who lived in that house. A guy named Mike, his wife named Glenda. As he began to share with them about what really was important to his life, he shared with them the gospel, invited them to church with him, and they actually went the next Sunday. A little church in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. They went to the church that Sunday. The preacher had the invitation. They actually walked down the aisle and gave their hearts to Christ, or were baptized. You know what's amazing? They had 3 kids. You know what's amazing about that story is everything in that house changed. What they did on Friday night changed. What they did on Saturday night changed. What they did on Sunday morning changed. The way the husband spoke to the wife, the way the wife spoke to the husband, everything in their life changed. Those 3 kids would tell you that. I can tell you that because that was my dad. I am so thankful that Bill shared with my dad about the gospel. My dad grew up in a family with an alcoholic father that would beat him, a mother. They lived next door to a church but never went to it, in the shadow of a steeple, and they never went to it. And all those people went to that church. They parked even my dad's yard, and they never shared with him. To say you want to go to the uttermost parts of the earth, and you don't go next door and share with a guy? I'm so thankful that there was a South Central Bell repairman at the time that would share with my father, who because of that literally changed my life. You say, well, I'm just going to be it doesn't matter what you fill in the blank. I mean, God can use you where you are. He uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things at all times. We're to be on mission. That's what we're going to focus on tonight and tomorrow, the 2 times. God has you here for a purpose, and we're to fulfill that purpose. I just want to beg you, look at people the way Jesus looked at people. Feel the way that Jesus felt. And then do as Jesus did. Father, thank you. Thank you for how you allow us to be a part of what you're doing. Lord, help us to be so focused on being on mission that we realize we will ultimately be doing something to earn a living and take care of our family and provide, but ultimately the real reason that we do what we do is to be on mission for you. Father, I thank you for the thousands of potential missionaries in this room today and the potential impact that they can have all over North America, the Northeast, the Midwest, West, and Canada. Father, all over this country and all over the world, that you could do right through the people here if we would just learn to look, see people as you see them, and act upon those feelings as you did. Father, we're so grateful for how you love us. Now use us to make a real difference in this world. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, you guys have been very gracious today. You have a great rest of the day, all right?